Baldwin was seen by many, mainly white people, as a radical. However, he was also viewed by many, mainly black people, as an Uncle Tom. With his work focusing on sensibilities for white perspectives, Baldwin was almost exclusively about being accepted into a white society and never really developed an understanding of African black people beyond being victims. Unfortunately, like many black celebrities, this never stopped Baldwin from proffering opinion as fact. Here, I'll challenge just a couple of Baldwin's sound bites. Apparently, Baldwin was asked which proved more difficult, being black or being gay. His glib response was, well, at least I don't have to tell my mother that I'm black. Baldwin's statement misses a very important point. Not having to tell anyone that you are black is a problem. It's also a reason for much of the cluelessness, confusion, and conflict that black people and black communities suffer. From the day that you are out of the womb that is, you are out. Everyone can see that you are black. Everyone that is, but you. And you suffer discrimination from that moment on. You experience hate long before you can even spell it. You experience prejudice long before you can even begin to understand why. Indeed, your mother has to tell you that you are black. You continue to suffer discrimination through nursery, primary, secondary, and tertiary education and employment. You don't have the option of building understanding, building friendships, and building support. You cannot choose when to let everyone know that you're black. As you grow, you are forced to find your own answers in any way that you can. You develop self-formulated theories that grow with you. These become embedded in your philosophies and your politics. This inevitably leads to a range of very different understandings of the problems that we face and how to deal with them across our communities. And this in turn leads to that confusion and conflict I mentioned earlier. And this impedes our ability to tackle discrimination. Not having to tell your mother that you are black is a major problem. Another Baldwin quote: "You were born where you were born and faced the future that you faced because you were black and for no other reason. For no other reason." I'm not discriminated against because of my colour. Baldwin's assertion is like verging on the ridiculous. Have we suffered centuries of rape, murder, enslavement, and colonialism simply because white people don't like our colour? Are white people like the proverbial bull, driven to anger simply by a colour? I was not born where I was born and face the future that I face because of my colour. My colour is little more than an identifier. I mean, an analogy. Let's say, for example, that there is such a thing as the gay gene, that the gay gene exists. But it not only affects your sexuality, it also affects your skin colour, turning it green. All gay people would then suffer colour prejudice. But that prejudice would not be against their colour. The prejudice would be for the same reason it is now the hatred instilled in society for those engaged in same-sex relationships. The only difference would be that they would now be easily identifiable. The prejudice against me results from centuries of fear, hatred, and disgust instilled in European societies against African people. Originally, this was just to justify the enslavement of Africans and the colonization of Africa. Unfortunately, it has never been fully challenged, as the bulk of black people today have lost any sense of an African identity. and indeed spend most of their time distancing themselves from being African. Now, back to the analogy, over centuries, green people, lusting after inclusion, may reject their sexuality and change to become heterosexual. Having established their heterosexuality, they will then gain mainstream acceptance despite their colour. They may still experience residual prejudice, but institutions would love them. They would prize green, straight people because they could claim being inclusive without actually having to amend their values or their practices. Now, black people seeking inclusion often reject their Africanness and adopt entirely European or Eurocentric values and ideals. Having demonstrated how European they are, they become accepted in the mainstream of European societies and, once again, become prized by institutions which can claim diversity without actually having to be culturally diverse, because all of their black people are essentially culturally the same as their white people. Unfortunately, for the Greens who remain gay and the blacks who remain African, not only do they continue to suffer prejudice from the mainstream, but also they suffer prejudice from the green or black people who view them as a threat to their acceptance. I was born where I was born because I am African. I was born where I was born because of the shipment of millions of enslaved Africans to the Americas, Europe, and Asia. I face the future that I faced because of the prejudice against Africans, their perceived cultural threat to European societies, and the lies told about Africans over hundreds of years that have never really been challenged. These lies can't be challenged by successful black British or black Americans, etc., because Europeans have always claimed that enslaving us and colonizing the continent was more of a philanthropic act, to make us more like them. Black successes, therefore, could be claimed as resulted from us being European, British, American, French, etc., and no longer African.